Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Well, folks, welcome back to another episode of Rethink Real Estate. I've got the man himself, Mr. Anthony Navarro, here with Harper Real Estate. And Anthony was the very first meeting that I got to have in San Francisco when we introduced auction into the area. So he was gracious enough to allow Dan and myself to come and talk to him about auction. So, Anthony, welcome along to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Mate, it's been a wild ride over the last couple of years because we got to talk to you before COVID, when we were doing Missouri Street, I believe was our first auction together.
Yes.
And ultimately it was interesting to then watch the evolution of the marketplace change as COVID got into the situation. But, you know, either way is that it was awesome that you gave us that opportunity very early on in our real estate journey in the Bay Area. But the first question I wanted to ask you, mate, for those that are at home listening and sort of tuning in and know who you are, because you are quite the celebrity of real estate in San Francisco. What made you give us a shot?
So ultimately, I had a seller that had aspirational pricing in their mind, meaning they wanted something that was going to go above what I thought the market would be. And so there's very few levers to pull to get there. Of course, I could try to price it low, and we tried that in the past and it didn't get the number he wanted. So ultimately, I thought this would give us the best chance to maximize the price, give us the best chance to have a real starting to bid from price without it being without buyers thinking they can buy it for that price or under that price. And that's how our relationship started.
So mate, it's funny that I have to admit is that when Dan told me that he got a meeting with you, I'm like, how? And because you had been one of the early adopters of side real estate and sort of opening up your own business unit and your own brand within side. They had a by invitation sort of feel to side. They still do, where it's the highest caliber of realtors that in the Bay Area that were invited to sort of be in the first sort of wave of those side agents. Mate, how did you get into real estate in the very beginning? Because we'll get into where you're at now with your team and where your business is, but where was the evolution into real estate? Because you are born and bred in the Bay Area. How did you find yourself in real estate?
Yes, it was interesting path because I graduated from UC Berkeley economics, which is a good background to have to get into real estate because we talk economics all the time. I went directly into owning my own business for a while, and then I went into software sales ultimately.
Okay.
And I worked at Oracle and I worked at NetSuite. And what I found when I was working there, I did fine. I was always doing really well in those companies as a salesperson, was that they would reduce my territory and lower my commissions every year, even though I did really well. And I just started thinking I have to figure out a way to control my own destiny. And I just always had an entrepreneurial mind. This is all part of it. My family has owned investment properties since I was born in San Francisco. And so I had the real estate bug, if you will. I became a real estate investor before I even was licensed, before I even had my own home. And so it was already there for me. I had this mentality, and then I started searching for, okay, what am I going to do next? And I looked into being a investment advisor. I looked into different paths, different businesses, and it always led me back to real estate. One, because I had experience in it, and it was in my blood and my family. and then two, it's very entrepreneurial, and it has a low cost to enter, right? That I didn't have to start
Mm.
a brick and mortar and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to start a business. I could start a business and build my business purely on sweat equity. And so that's and then I had some mentors, and they would tell me, and that were real estate agents, and they said, "Hey, Anthony, if you're going to sell something, you might as well sell the most expensive thing you can sell." And I thought about that. And it was funny because I was on the beach in Forestville, and on the Russian River, and I remember she told me that, and it stuck with me. And I just said, okay. And I was at the time I was selling software, and I thought that was expensive. It was, software is very expensive, but someone could take away anything I built in selling software, right? They could fire me, they could lower my commission, and I didn't like that feeling, and I wanted to build something for myself. So that's how I got into real estate ultimately.
So where did you start?
So I first started, I hung my license. I actually worked at two separate companies. I hung my license with one of my friends' brokerages. It was a little boutique company, and they were based out of Sacramento. And and then I was doing loans first and real estate. So I was trying to do both. And this is before you had to have a separate license for lending.
Yep.
So I did that. It was incidentally, that same boutique brokerage is now a side partner because I recruited them over. Um, but I was working with them for maybe about 3 to 5 months, and I soon realized I needed to work with a local firm, meaning local San Francisco firm. So that's when I joined Coldwell Banker, and Coldwell Banker at that time was the number one brokerage in San Francisco. So that was the reason why I joined them.
When did you hit a point, Anthony? Because you guys do a great deal of business in the Bay Area, both from a transaction perspective, but then also from a volume. Is that when did you hit a point within your real estate career where you felt that you were successful? Was there a point there?
No, I mean, I don't have that mentality that I'm quote unquote successful. And so I, I just feel like that's a complacent mentality. So I don't really feel that way. I feel that there's a whole nother level I could reach. Now, when I first started, I was surprised. I can tell you this story. I was surprised because I was in this office in Coldwell Banker, and I immediately, I was doing sales. 2000. This was 2010, and everyone kept congratulating me on all my transactions, and I was just surprised because I had just started, and other people that were doing the business a long time weren't having the same level of success, let's say. And I remember being super concerned. So I talked to my manager at the time, and I said, hey, I realize I'm having this success. I'm not, and people are complimenting me, but I don't get it. Why is it that I'm able to do this and these other people who've been doing it a lot longer don't have this many transactions? And what he told me was, hey, the most successful, because really what I was getting at is like, I want to maintain my success and elevate it. And he said, well, the most successful agents put a process around everything. And so I got that. I mean, I already had a sales process, but I didn't really have like a deep business process yet. And so now I just kept on doing what I was doing.
Hmm.
But early on, I never felt that, I was always doing transactions because I'm the type of person that, like, if I don't have transactions going on, I'm,
Yep.
I'm going to go crazy. Right. So that I always had transactions going on and always was working. And it was really, that's probably what motivates me, is to just know that I have to make money, support my family, and I got to keep the momentum going. So, I know your original question was, I mean, I guess I was successful from day one, but there was always another level that I wanted to reach, is really the reality.
So I think that the one thing I've enjoyed about working with you, Anthony, in the past is that you're very I don't want to say the word coachable, but you are open to a great deal of different things and thinking differently about how real estate works. Like again, Missouri Street and being one of our first initial people that was inviting us in to do the auction process on one of your listings. Then also, you went down the path of doing some expired stuff and using the auction process to sort of attract expireds, even though you had a deep client base as well. You're constantly tinkering and changing in your business. What do you think motivates you to do that? Why do you think you do that?
Probably fear.
Well, no, but it's true. But that's probably paranoia is something that keeps everybody going, really, from a financial sense in a commission-based world.
True. And I just think if you're not growing, the side founder guy gal told me, hey, if you're not growing, then you're probably going backwards. And that really stuck with me because I really feel that to grow, that you need to be open and to learn. And it's not just growing financially or growing the amount of transactions, because you're not going to grow financially if you're not growing in your knowledge base as well. So they're hand in hand in the way I look at things. And I'm always open to listening and trying new things, because that's how I feel like I can grow. And I've tried almost everything out there. I would say, like, there's probably not a system that I haven't tried. And sometimes I shift quickly when I feel like it's not going the way I want to, or someone over promises and under delivers. So uh, I'm very quick to change. I know there was a company I was working with, and they said, oh, we'll guarantee you 10 appointments. And I said, okay, well, if you're going to guarantee me 10 appointments, then I'm in. Right. And this was recently even. And I've been around the block. I've seen a lot. And they started saying, oh, here's your
Yep.
appointments. And I said, well, those are not appointments. And I said, if you think those are appointments, we should just end this relationship now. So, and it was like a good program. The reason why I joined it was because a mentor recommended it. Right. And so but I was like, okay, well, you overpromised. So now I'm out. So it really comes down to wanting to grow, and there's always something to learn. I always feel that way. I learn something new every day, and I learn from experienced agents and from new agents. So there's always something to learn, and so that I think that's why I have an open mind. And I've always been entrepreneurial, and I feel like if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be super open-minded. Hence why I even moved from Coldwell Banker to side.
Well, that actually probably brings me to the transition, Anthony, is that, the funny part about it is that one thing dealing with yourself is that I think that your ego is ultimately always in check, which is interesting in the real estate community. There's certainly big egos in the real estate community. I think that's helped. And that's where I wanted to segue this, because you then, went from, doing really well in Coldwell Banker, and then the opportunity to join Side and then create your sort of own brand, Harper Real Estate, which is named after your daughter, and all of these different things. But then adding the team to the other layer of that, how did that change the fundamental of what you were doing?
Sure. So the team environment, everything kind of happened organically. Like, I had people join my team organically. I wasn't trying to recruit. And it started when I was at Coldwell Banker, and they were newly licensed agents, and they needed some mentorship, so they joined my team. My first team member was my former assistant, and I made a horrible boss, and she made a horrible assistant. And she's like, hey, Anthony, I'd rather just try to sell. And I'm like, oh, great, perfect. and she's still with me today, which is amazing, right? So it all happened.
That's a great story. That's awesome.
It kind of happened organic. I never thought, oh, I want to have a team, because that's the key to success. Which is, most people are like, oh, I want to have a team because the more people I have, I can make more money. And I never had that mentality. And the part of the reason why I didn't have that mentality is because when you're at a big box brokerage like a Coldwell Banker, they don't really support teams, and they're not really advocates of teams. And the reason why they're not big advocates of teams is because, for the simple fact that they make less money. So it's not in their financial
Yeah.
interest to support a team. So the infrastructure, the processes, the managing the team, elevating the team, I didn't have that kind of support. And when I was at Coldwell Banker, even though I had team members come to me organically, I was not, I didn't support the team in the way I needed to for them to be successful. We kind of were successful almost by accident. And, like my mentorship program for one of my team members, who was referred to me by my painter, his nephew, his name's Martine, and he's like a phenomenal salesperson. But my mentorship with him was,
Yeah.
hey, follow me, shadow me, listen to everything I do and say and how I speak, and just go out and do that. And I'm not kidding you. That's what he did. And he even does
Yeah.
it better than I do it. So he's absolutely phenomenal. And he started with me
Yeah.
at Coldwell
Yeah.
Banker, and then we made the shift to side and starting my own business because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm open to new ways. And they said, Anthony, you should create a sellable asset. You can't sell Anthony Navarro. And I said, that's true. I cannot sell Anthony Navarro. And so that's when it hit me like, okay, if I really want to build something that I own, I need my own brand. But I don't want to I'm not an operational person. I'm not sitting on my computer looking at spreadsheets all day to figure out all these different nuances of running a business. That's not what I do. And Side presented this opportunity of, hey, we're going to help you grow your team. We're going to help you manage your team. We're going to provide all the broker ops, all the marketing, everything that a brokerage would provide, but focus it around a team and build it from the ground up. And you're going to have your own brand. And it was hard for me to say no to that. I have to say, when I was at Coldwell Banker, I had
Sure.
that year I left, and maybe this is one of your next questions, so I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit, but I had my best year. We did about 40 million in sales,
It's all right.
and I was
Yeah.
I was like the poster
Yeah.
boy for Coldwell Banker. I was a part of every lead system they had. I was getting referrals. I knew everybody. I was like literally the poster boy for Coldwell Banker, from taking advantage of everything they got. Not because I was a celebrity or anything, but it was more just I took advantage of everything they had to offer, and position
Yeah.
myself to create a good, strong business. And so I was approached by Side telling me all these other things. It was really hard to walk away from all these great things that have happened. But I saw the vision of owning my own asset.
So talk to me about the transition, Anthony. Like, talk to me about when you made the decision to move. There's a statistic that Compass brought out saying that 87% of agents that move brands will do less in their in the following quarter than what they did in the average of their last 4 quarters. So they say that there's a great deal of momentum that you lose when you change and when you do all of those different things. How did you find it?
So I that's another great question. So I grew. I went from 40 million to 50 million to 95 million. And so that was the evolution. And then last year, we unfortunately didn't continue to grow. There was some extenuating circumstances, but we still ended up about 85 million. And so
Wow, that's pretty. That's some big growth. That's some huge growth.
yes, so I didn't experience the Compass issue, and the reason is because, well, multiple reasons. No other company has what Side offers in terms of the infrastructure to help you grow a team. Um, and help you grow your brand.
Sure.
So it's just actually, I just got off a call, and now I have the ability to layer Forbes into my business for a luxury presence, and
Right.
no other company is doing that, right? And Side brokered this meeting and spearheaded everything, and now I have the opportunity to have that as another layer brand that I can use for my luxury sales, which is, that's just another whole nother opportunity that uh, I wouldn't be in front of if I wasn't part of this model that, Side went from basically zero sales 4 or 5 years ago, and is now a top 10 brokerage in all of the US. And then in San Francisco,
Yeah.
they're a top 2 brokerage in San Francisco. So it's
Yeah.
quite amazing how they've grown and the offerings they have for us. And so that's it. It's been super compelling for me, and helped me grow my brand now.
So, mate, the thing that I enjoy just hearing is that you will take most things that are given an opportunity, that you're given an opportunity to sort of use in your business, and then you sort of you run with them to see whether or not they do work out. Now, obviously, the one thing that I wanted to sort of go through with you today is the Missouri Street auction and sort of dissect that a little bit, because I think that it's a really interesting case study. Because all said and done, when it comes to the definition of success, that was not a rip roaring success, that listing, and it was the first opportunity that we had with you. There's no doubt that we certainly proved to you that we'll be part of your team and that we'll work hard and be alongside you. But as far as results go, whilst we got a 2. I think it was $2.7 million, I think is what we got highest bid on auction day. I think it might have been that. I can't really remember at the moment. And he ended up selling it for a lot less later. So we did get a great result, but ultimately it just didn't pan out the way that it was. You still have used auction in your business for a great deal of transactions. What made you continue to move forward, even though it didn't get you the actual sale itself? What did you see in the process that then you implemented still into part of your business today? Again, it's not a huge part of your business, but it is still a part there.
It is definitely a part. There's a couple reasons why. I saw during the auction process the leverage that the auction created on behalf of the seller that I couldn't create. And so, if ultimately that leverage, like, to get into some of the details, is there's the leverage before the auction even starts, and that was really compelling, because and this was what was really great about the auction, before we even went to auction, everybody would have to register that was going to potentially bid, and the auction company would have a conversation with every single buyer and say, where do you value the property? And I loved that, because before we went into the auction, we knew how everyone valued the property. And
Yeah.
if everyone valued the property about the same, then it would make sense to go to auction, because then you could watch them try to outbid each other. If there was someone that was way higher, like above everyone else, it would have made sense, and we've done this multiple times, it makes sense at that point to go to that highest bidder and say, well, why don't you write that offer and put it on paper now, so you can stop the auction and stop the competition. Now, that high buyer doesn't know that everyone else is down here. So those
Yeah.
leverage points I can't create by having a event-based pricing and pricing under market and having like a silent bid basically type of auction. I can't create those leverage points. And I've been part
Yeah.
of multiple transactions where we were scheduled to go to auction, and just the mere threat of the auction coming motivated buyers to put in offers early, yet they were the only offer, only one offer, and it was high enough to move the needle for the seller. And that was super compelling. And I'm talking about tough properties to sell on a condo on a busy street with no parking. And we were able to get like over 20% over the asking price. So, I mean, that was like absolutely amazing. So I'm a big fan of auction. The more I'm doing it, the more I become a fan of it. And we're still going after expireds with my team members. And so we're heavily involved. And I bring up auction to any listed appointment I go on, because I feel like it's that powerful, that I really feel like pretty much every property should go through auction, because that's going to yield the best result, is how I feel about it. And it's not a sales pitch for Harcourts, but it's just reality.
No, mate. Well, hey, I think that the thing that that I've certainly appreciated is your open-mindedness to using it, and creating it as a department in your business, because that's one of the things that has never been an issue with yourself and your business, is that sometimes what we do is that when we go when we go and talk to agents with their sellers, they didn't bring it up in the first case to say, hey, this is an option that you have. So when they go back to then going, hey, we should try this, they're like, well, why didn't you bring it up with me in the first case? That really has never ever been an issue for yourself, because even if they want to try traditional in the first case, you still mention it in the first case, so then we can go back. And I think that you've managed to make sure that you're an agent that, I think in summary to all of this, as we round out the interview, is that I think that people should be able to take away from this, Anthony, is that you not only have a tool belt, you have tried to stuff your tool belt full of so much stuff that it would make no sense for a seller ever not to go with you, because they know how much stuff you offer from a perspective of, if something goes wrong, you've got the auction process there. If you need marketing routine, marketing materials, or different exploits in order to actually push the property out, you're using absolutely everything at your disposal. So I think that if there was a closing thought from me, is that the open-mindedness that you have to anything that comes along in your real estate business is probably something that I think is a catalyst to your success so far. Would you think that's fair?
I think it is. And just believing, ultimately, the belief of things going to go in a positive direction is of course crucial as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. You've always had an optimistic outlook, mate. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. It's been great to reconnect, and certainly we thank you for all of your support that you've given us over the last few years to get auctions known in the Bay Area.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I love what you guys do.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.